Good evening, everyone. I am absolutely delighted to be here tonight. And thank you, Sarah, for that wonderful introduction. Thank you, Kelly, for bringing it along. And as important, thank you, Mireia, for being here. So let me tell you a little story. I met Mireia, I would say, my partner at Goldman Sachs had said he had invested in her business, and I had to meet this amazing woman. We sat down and we chatted for, I think, more than an hour. It was supposed to last for half an hour, and we chatted for an hour. And I just could not. Basically, it's like when you read a book, you just can't put it down. I couldn't put Mireia down. All right. So Mireia is the founder of DeMellier of London, which is a British handbag brand known for its timeless design, ethical production, fast-growing international presence. From launching in a very competitive luxury market to seeing her bags carried by everyone from royals to global tastemakers, we'll find out who they are, Mireia has built something truly remarkable. So welcome, Mireia.
Thank you. That's very kind. Equally impressive lady here, as Sarah was saying, by the way, kicking ass, one of the most senior, well, the most senior woman or man, Swedish, in banking in London. So that tells you something. So we should do a big shout out to Anna.
That would be a group of one.
Exactly.
Now, samples is important. Mireia, let's start at the beginning. When you graduated from university, you weren't daydreaming of becoming an entrepreneur. In fact, you went into management consulting, like my friend Sarah here, and you didn't have many entrepreneur role models to look up to. What was the spark which led you to create DeMellier?
Yeah, so I mean, I don't know in which stage of your journey you are at, but for me, I was not a born entrepreneur. I was not selling necklaces when I was 15. There was not an entrepreneurial bone in my body. And I joined management consulting, loved it, and I thought, I'm going to be a partner one day, that's it. And it was about 2-3 years into my management consulting journey that I had all these entrepreneurial ideas suddenly popping in my head. No one in my family is an entrepreneur. No one in my husband family is an entrepreneur. So it was a very foreign concept to me. And I'm risk averse. So I'm not a person that takes risks lightly. And my mother is very creative, so I think it comes from there, like the creativity side. But so I thought, okay, I need to think about this because it wouldn't stop all these ideas that I was having. I decided to go to business school in the U.S., do a master's, an MBA for 2 years. And that really allowed me to have the time to do a business plan, put down my thoughts. I work in the summer for LVMH, to learn more about the industry. And then it was when I came back actually to Bain & Company, the management consulting I was working for, 2 years, because I was like, "Ooh, am I going to do this?" It was scary for me. And when I had my first daughter, I have 3. I was like, okay, now is my moment. I'm going to take the year off of maternity leave to start doing the samples and explore where this could take me.
You had so much time.
I know, exactly. Well, people say I was working, like 12 hours a day or 10 to 12 hours. So I was like, surely I can do this, right? How long can it take? Yes, it was a little bit more time consuming than I thought. But when the baby was sleeping, for example, and I could multitask and do, when the baby was sleeping, I was starting. So that's how it started. So for me, it was something that came later in life. And one thing, actually, there was something at business school that one of the case protagonists came and spoke and really resonated with me, which was, the most successful entrepreneurs are not those that take the most risk, but those who manage it best. And then I thought, okay, I could be that person, because I was not the person who was taking a lot of risks, but that could resonate with me. So I think that really helped me, that and seeing a lot of people around me starting business. I always say, I think I told you, Anna, when I was at business school, I had 2 guys in my class started an airline. And I was like, well, if they can start an airline, surely I can sell a few bags. That was kind of the thing.
That was the spark.
That was the spark.
Before we go into maybe the key lessons that you have learned in your entrepreneurship journey, can you just give a couple of data points on your business today, size, etc., because it's truly impressive what you've built.
So, and when we talk about resilience, I'll tell you, because this year we'll do 50 million in revenues. We are, 80% of our business is e-commerce, 20% is wholesale. We are in Selfridges in the UK, in Neiman Marcus, Saks, Fifth Avenue, Le Bon Marché in Paris, all the big stores. But it has been hard. To your point, Sarah, about I'll share you is not an easy journey. And people look and it's like, actually, because I started 15 years ago, DeMellier we launched 7.5 years ago, and that's part of the story of things that had to change along the way. But I started 15 years ago, and people think, well, 15 years, 50 million valuation, probably 3 times that. That's actually pretty decent. But the hard part was, maybe I'll talk about that now, when I started. So the first 5 years, 5 years to reach 500,000, okay, in revenues. I had my other 2 kids, so I had 3 kids, and I was juggling the kids. I put 50,000 pounds into the business. That was my investment. I was juggling doing the studio of my house, and I had a couple of people helping me, but pretty much 500,000. Then we raised a small amount. We can talk about it later. And then the next 5 years, I took it to 5 million. So from 500,000 to 5 million, but still 10 years for a 5 million business. I mean, that's a long time if I compare with what I had been earning in consulting, for example, so I was foregoing a big salary. It felt painfully slow, I can tell you. And then the last 5 years, I took it from 5 to 50. But my point is, I think a lot of people drop in those 10 years because that is very painful. And if there's one thing, it's resilience and grit, right? That you have to keep going. You have to see some signs. Like you have to see, for example, our sales were always growing, even some years, not a lot, and we were not losing money. So the majority of the years we're either making a bit of money or not losing. So that kept me going without having to invest extra money. But it was tough. It's a long journey. So
been a long journey.
Yeah.
I think when you and I prepared for this, you had your 5 things: dream big, grit, which you mentioned, constant learning and adaptation, get investors. I like that. Get investors, and equality at home. Maybe you can just touch upon each one of these. You talked about grit already, but start with dream big. That was something which resonated with me because I hadn't thought about that way.
So I think one of the things with women in general is that we don't dream big enough, women entrepreneurs. So I often talk to women entrepreneurs and they're like, oh yeah, I'm going to try this on the side, a little thing. And I was like, no, don't do that. It's going to be very painful. It's going to take a long time. You're going to either not earn a lot of money. So if you're going to do it, dream big. You are going for you're going to make it big. You might not get there, but like men don't, a lot of men.
Men who don't get there?
Yeah, exactly. Surprisingly so. But I think the key thing is dream big, because then you kind of set your mind to, okay, I have to get there. So in my case, when I was at business school, again, I thought, and I don't know why I picked this number, but I thought, okay, if I create a 20 million business, that will feel, it's not 200, so it didn't feel like, oh my God, that's so far away. But it felt sizable. And until I got there, it was one of the guiding stars that I was like, okay, I have to keep going. I have to keep going. So I think it's important that you dream big, because it's going to be a lot of effort. So yeah, and also it helps you as a path. Like I remember when we first raised money, it was 500,000 revenue, and we said, we did this business plan. Okay, we're going to get to 2.5 million, which at the time felt like, oh Jesus, how am I going to get to that? And then you go, okay, the next, and the next. But having that is really helpful. So I would encourage all of you, and also we will talk about in a second about relationship with your partners. When you're like, okay, I am going to set up a multi-million business, so I'm not going to be taking all the house tasks and I'm going to be all these things because I'm on a mission. So it really helps you, and it helps those around you to set the tone. Because if you say, oh, I'm not sure, I'm going to set up this little thing on the side, then they're not going to take it seriously. And also you, in a way, I think you're setting up yourself for not success, basically. So that's the first one.
Yeah. And I guess one of your lessons is get investors. So maybe we talk about that. The thematic today is funded and fearless, which I just love that title. I think I'm going to steal it for one of my pitches. Can you talk a little bit about, and this is something, I've been in investment banking for almost 30 years. I have worked on a number of IPOs. I think in many companies public. And it's true, when you look at the amount of funding which goes to female-founded businesses, is still, it's not even like the minority, is ridiculously low versus the overall funding. So you you have managed to fundraise multiple times. I also know from being partnered with one of your investors that they're extremely happy. So why don't you talk about that pitch? What has been your pitch, and what has been the difficulties that you have faced, and how did you overcome them?
I think the first point about one of my learnings is get investment. The reason is without money, it's nearly impossible to scale. Whether it's your money, your family's money, the investor money, you need money to scale. Otherwise, you'll remain always small. So that's the first thing. Also, it gives you discipline, because first you have to give accounts every month to your investors. So it really helps you to get your house in order. And it also helps having that, okay, I'm going from 500,000 to 2.5 million. So how am I going to do it? You have to put a plan together. So I think it really gives discipline. In terms of how I did it, so the first round, I mean, there's many ways that you can use. You can use friends and family. You can use platforms where you can, raise money from multiple people. You can use customers. Sometimes I know brands that have used customers to say, I'm raising money. Will you pitch, chip in? In my case, the first round, I didn't want to do friends and family, because in my case, I felt like, oh, if I'm going to have them on my shoulders, like not succeeding, and then, oh, I'm going to lose.
We'll hear about it at Christmas.
Yeah,
forever.
And also more, I felt bad about it, right? I mean, I would feel really bad about it. I mean, not that I wouldn't feel bad with investors, but it's a bit different, and depending if it represents an important part of someone's wealth. Anyway, so I went and I used a small company, an advisor that was helping reach out to investors, and they lined up actually. 5 people, 5 small family offices and so on. And then I picked the one that had a woman. So that's always, because she understood the product the most. So, and that was actually relatively easy. So I would say it's actually now easier at the beginning when you're raising 200,000, 500,000, maybe up to 1 million. That's because there's angel investors. There's people who there's quite a few women, women small funds that are trying to invest in women money in women's businesses. So I think it's easier. There's more ways. I think it was harder after the round we did about 3 years ago. We needed a bit of money as well, and then we thought, okay, we're going to go out there and see what VC funds or small private equity, and that was hard. I think when you're around 10 million, it's harder in a way.
Why is that? What was it that you found hard?
I think it's a combination. I think there's fewer. Everyone is like, okay, once you're 50 million, they are knocking on your door, right? And he's like, well, I needed when I was 10, So it's just the market. There's fewer. I think they're less sophisticated in a way. And a lot of them are men behind them, so they don't understand women products. So there's less chances. So I think that's where it was harder. And I remember we tried and we were not getting. So in the end, I went to some people who had told me throughout the years, if you want money at some point, let me know. I would like to invest in you. That was one of your co-partners at Goldman. And then I went to them and I said, okay, are you interested? 4 of them, 2 women and 2 men.
He's a male partner, so he got it. He's a evolved one.
Yeah, no, but he's a great one. He's a great male supporter. We need the men that support us. And then the last round, and it's funny, when you don't need the money comes, which is the tough part. So in that round, after that we were doing better than planned, and so we didn't need much money at the time. And there were a number of funds that we had reached out, and they were like, no, now consumer confidence is low, the war in Ukraine at the time, which you will hear. If you're in a consumer product, you hear all the time, there's always something. And I was like, yeah, but look at the numbers, we're performing really well, blah, blah. Okay, then we found our way. So you will have to find your way if you don't have your option A, which in my case was, reaching out to these friends. And then someone came, okay, but you talked to us 9 months ago and we're interested in investing. I'm like, yeah, but now we've outperformed, we don't need it. I said, yeah, are you sure? Because we are really interested. And I said, okay, then I want this valuation, no rights whatsoever, no board seats, da 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 da. And the advisor said they will say no. I was like, it's fine, we don't need it. I'll continue to grow, I'll raise later. They say yes. So the power of, and also I think it's about a little bit knowing your worth. I mean, there are situations where you're desperate. You have to take the money, you do, bad valuation, you have to do what you have to do. But if you are not in that situation and you can stretch it, the power of no, goes a long way. And also particularly as women, we tend to like be, okay, maybe, and, we're more risk averse. But I think the learning there is, if you don't need it, know your worth.
I love it. I love the fact that they came to you when you didn't need it, then you put on the table, your sort of conditions.
So, I mean, I always say you put a hell of a lot of work and you have a moment of luck. Sometimes you don't even have a moment of luck, but, I was lucky to have my moment of luck. We had just rebranded. So after about 6 years, when I raised money the first time, I rebranded. I thought, okay, I know a little bit about this industry. I need to rebrand. I need a new website, new brand, everything. And that's what we did. And we launched. I mean, it was such a tough fall, such a tough autumn where, sales were just, I mean, we were growing, but not as much. We were spending more money. I thought I have to raise again. Incredibly painful, as you will go through your journeys. And then one January morning, I was actually going to meet investors to do another round, and I was really dreading it because I was like, they're going to question my valuation. Da, da. And that was in the morning. They didn't turn up. They had some issue. At 3 p.m., she's wearing the bag and it's all over. I mean, I had calls from CNN, from Hello Spain. I mean, you name it. It was madness. And then, so of course, the brand, everything, it helped tremendously. But we had very little stock. I mean, and that bag, we were thinking about discontinuing it. The margins were not that good. So, and then we put it, and then we literally had like maybe 15 bags, I don't know, or like 20 bags.
Bags in stock. Yeah. And you got how many orders?
And then, so what we did is we put it on pre-order. So these are a very good advice. So if you don't have a product, put it on pre-order. And we said pre-order delivery in 4 months. It was like 3-4 months. And we called the suppliers and say, can you do all these, can you prepare to do a lot? We don't know how much yet, but it would be quite a bit. So we kind of left the tap open and see how many orders we got. So over a week, and, we were about, at the time we were like, 400,000, 500, 500,000 business. And we sold 500,000 in about a week, or a week and a half. So it was crazy. And so then what happened, but I had 500,000 of pre-orders to fulfill. So that was a little bit stressful. We had PayPal actually froze our funds because they're like, you're not shipping. And they're like, yeah, but we need the funds. Anyway, they released them. So all these stories you had to go through. But I think the thing was, that we took the risk in terms of doing the pre-orders and then delivering. And then we rally all our suppliers and we managed to do it and deliver on time.
Took a risk and it paid off.
Yeah. I have to say, though, that I think that you have to take some risk, but there's some people that take a lot of risk, and that's not a bad thing, and they can grow faster. But we've taken what I call like moderate risk and really assessing. For example, when we went to China, we did it with a small setup that it was not going to cost a fortune if it didn't work. And then we decided to pause for the time being, and it didn't cost us a lot. So we haven't, there are things we could have done faster or sooner, but we haven't done any big like mistakes in the sense like, you've invested half of your business on something and it went wrong. I think for me, that's a lesson. You go a bit slower probably, but equally you don't break the boat.
Fantastic. Yeah. I love this moment of when you had to sort of lean in and tell PayPal that the bags were coming. We're going to wrap up. Any last words that you want to have for the audience, you want to share with the audience here?
Maybe the one of the other learnings that it's not only about entrepreneurship, but in general, one of my key lessons is that we women, we cannot succeed in whatever profession, whether it's banking, writing, being a writer, a doctor, or an entrepreneur, if we don't have equality at home. So I'm going to give you an example. When I started, my husband is Swedish, believes in equality, great. But when we started, I thought to myself, okay, I'm not earning any money. I'm not going to earn any money for a while. I'm starting from scratch. I'm figuring this out. So I took on board all the household tasks. We had help. We were very fortunate. We had help with the cleaning and some cooking. But with 3 kids. I mean, if you have kids, the newsletters, the play dates, the birthdays. There's a list that is a full-time job. And that was a big mistake because until I was able to, it took hours of my day. I mean, women, I've done a lot of studies about this and I talked to younger or like teenagers about it. We work more than men, more hours a day. but we do 70%, spend 70% more time on unpaid tasks than men. 70%. So that means that, you know, we get paid less, we succeed less. So we need to be ruthless in our households. I mean, by the way, this happens often when it's men and women. I have friends who are 2 men, 2 women, they crack it. I don't know how they do it, but much better. So when there's a man and a woman, for some reason, you know, so you have to be ruthless to say, okay, we're going to split the workload of the household equally to the T, basically. And I did that with my husband about 3 years ago, and it was life-changing, you know. And there's 2 books I would recommend. One is The Moment of Lift by Melinda Gates, that talks about this. And the other one is called Fair Play, which is very funny, actually, by an American writer. But it talks about how you split it. And it was very obvious. I wrote it down in an Excel. Okay, what am I doing, the hours, and what are you doing? And it became obvious that I was doing more. And I was a breaking point because the 3 kids with the business. And so I think my key lesson is that you have to divide those tasks, because otherwise you won't have enough time to become a successful entrepreneur or a banker or whatever you need to do, you know. So that would be my lesson.
Fantastic. I love it. That's clearly your management consultancy background there with your spreadsheet.
Exactly.
And the household tasks.
Exactly.
Thank you, Mireia, for sharing so generously of your time.